Large language model tools like ChatGPT, Claude, and Copilot are great. But what if you want to customize them? What if you want them to do exactly what you need them to do? One that reads your email and manages your calendar and actually takes action on your behalf in the way you want it to. That's what we're building today. A customized AI agent using OpenAI's API and LangChain. By the end of this video, you'll have the knowledge to customize your own agents to do what you want them to. We'll go through an example where we create our own Gmail assistant that can summarize your inbox and send email for you. Fair warning, this video assumes you have some coding experience, preferably with Python. If you're completely new to coding, I have a video called How to Think Like a Coder that covers the fundamentals. There's a link in the description. You're welcome to follow along regardless, but some concepts might feel unfamiliar. Here's what we'll cover. First, setting up an OpenAI account and getting your API key. Second, understanding what LangChain and LangGraph actually are. No fluff, just what you need to know. Third, building a simple agent to understand the basics. Fourth, creating your Gmail helper agent, including setting up Google's API. And finally, a summary of key takeaways. Let's get into it. Before we write any code, you need access to OpenAI's API. This is different from having a ChatGPT account. The API lets you programmatically interact with their models, which is what we need for building agents. Head to platform.openai.com and create an account if you don't have one. Once you're in, go to Settings, then API Keys. Click Create New Secret Key, give it a name like Agent-Project, and copy it immediately. You won't be able to see it again. Now, an important note on costs. Unlike ChatGPT's subscription, the API charges per token, essentially per word. For learning and small projects, you're looking at pennies. But it's a pay-as-you-go model, so you need to add a payment method and set a spending limit. I'd recommend starting with something low like $10 while you're experimenting. Create a file called .env in your project folder and add your key like this. We'll use this key to load the key securely in our code. Speaking of which, let's talk about the tools that make building agents much easier. So, you have an API key. You could technically build everything from scratch using OpenAI's raw API. But that's like building a house by making your own bricks. Possible, but tedious. This is where LangChain comes in. LangChain is a Python framework, a collection of pre-built tools and patterns that makes working with large language models much easier. Think of it this way. OpenAI gives you the brain. LangChain gives you the body parts, tools to connect that brain to the outside world. What can you do with LangChain? Connect AI to databases, search engines, APIs. Build chatbots with memory. Create chains where one AI response feeds into another. And most importantly, for us, to build agents. An agent is an AI that can decide what actions to take. Instead of you writing if this then that logic, the agent figures out which tools to use based on what you ask it. LangGraph is an extension of LangChain, specifically for building agents with more complex workflows. It lets you define states and transitions. Think of it as a flowchart. The agent follows. For today's Gmail agent, we'll use LangGraph because it gives us more control over how the agent behaves. I'm keeping this overview brief because LangChain's documentation is excellent and constantly updated. Link in the description if you want to dive deep into the theory. Let's get practical and build something. Before we tackle Gmail, let's build the simplest possible agent to understand how the pieces fit together. Our agent will have one tool, a calculator. When you ask it a math question, it should figure out if it needs to use the calculator, use it, and return the answer. Open your code editor, create a new file called simple_agent.py. First, we load our API key from that .env file we created earlier. Next, we define a tool. In LangChain, a tool is just a Python function with a description. The description is crucial. It's how the agent knows when to use this tool. Now we create the agent itself. We need 3 things: the language model, the tools it can use, and the prompt that tells it how to behave. And finally, we invoke the agent with a question. Look at what happened. The agent received our question, decided it needed to calculate something, called our calculator tool, and returned the result. We didn't write any if-else logic. The agent figured it out. This is the core pattern. Define tools, give them clear description, let the agent decide when to use them. Now let's build something actually useful. To interact with Gmail and Google Calendar, we need to authenticate with Google's API. This part is a bit tedious, but you only do it once per project. Go to castle.cloud.google.com and create a new project. Call it something like AI Agent Project. In the left menu, go to APIs and Services, then Library. Search for Gmail API and enable it. Do the same for Google Calendar API. Now we need credentials. Go to APIs and Services, then Credentials. Click Create Credentials and choose OAuth 2.0 Client ID. You'll need to configure the OAuth consent screen first. Choose External for testing, add your email, and for scopes, add Gmail and Calendar read-write access. Back to Credentials, create an OAuth Client ID. Choose Desktop App as the application type and download the JSON file. Rename it to credentials.json and put it in your project folder. Install the Google Client libraries. The first time you run the agent, it will open a browser window asking you to authorize access. After that, it saves a token so you don't have to reauthorize every time. All right, the boring setup is done. Let's build the agent. Our Gmail agent will do 3 things: summarize recent emails, send emails, and check calendar events. Let's build each tool, then wire them together. Create a new file called gmail_agent.py. First, the authentication function. This handles the OAuth flow we just set up. Now our first tool, summarizing emails. This function fetches recent emails and returns their subjects and snippets. Notice the description. Use this to get a summary of recent emails in the inbox. That's what the agent reads to decide when to use this tool. Second tool, sending emails. This one takes a recipient, subject, and body as parameters. The agent will extract these from your natural language request. Third tool, checking calendar events. Now we create the agent using LangGraph. LangGraph lets us define a state graph, essentially the agent's decision-making flowchart. The graph has 3 nodes: the agent's reasoning step, the tool execution step, and the end. The agent reasons, decides if it needs a tool, uses it if so, then either continues reasoning or finishes. Let's test it. And run. So the agent is running, but notice what's happening here. The terminal just says running on 127.0.0.1:5000 and sits there. It's not asking for input. That's because our code just starts the server. And the server is ready on port 5000, but we need something to actually send it requests. And that's where our Chrome extension comes in, that you're going to create now. In your project folder, create a folder called my-extension, and inside it, we need to create 2 new files. First, manifest.json. This file tells Chrome what our extension does and where it should run. See this matches line? It tells Chrome only run this extension on mail.google.com, so our chat widget only appears when you're in Gmail. Second, content.js. This is the code that creates the chat interface you see in Gmail. When you type a message and hit send, this line here sends your text to localhost. That's the server we just started. The server passes it to our LangChain agent, gets a response, and sends it back to the chat widget. To load the extension into Chrome, go to Chrome, hit the Extension tab, and enable Developer Mode in the top right corner. Then click Load Unpacked. Select your My Extension folder, and you'll see My AI Agent Bridge appear in your extensions. Now open Gmail. You'll see a blue button in the bottom right corner, and that's our agent. Let's try sending an email. The agent parsed our natural language request, extracted the recipient, subject and body, and called the send email tool with the right parameters. And calendar. That's a working Gmail and calendar agent. 3 tools, 1 agent, natural language interface. Let's recap what we covered. First, OpenAI API setup. You need an API key from platform.openai.com stored securely in a .env file. Remember, API usage costs money per token, so set a spending limit. Second, LangChain and LangGraph. LangChain connects AI tools. LangGraph lets you build agents with defined workflows. Together, they handle complex orchestration so you can focus on what your agents should do. Third, building agents. The pattern is simple. Define tools with clear descriptions. Create an agent with those tools and let it figure out which tools to use based on your requests. Fourth, Google API integration. One type set up through Google Cloud Console, then your agent can read emails, send messages, and check calendars. Now, where do you go from here? Add more tools, file management, web searches, database queries. Add memory so your agent remembers past conversations. Build specialized agents for your specific workflow. The full code from this video is linked in the description. LangChain's documentation is also linked there. Highly recommend reading through their agent guides for more advanced patterns. If you have questions or want to share what you're building, drop it in the comments. And as always, like and subscribe if this was helpful. See you in the next one.